What's quacking, guys? It's the Duck Chris. Today we're going to be talking about Old School RuneScape's Game Jam. This whole week, the JMods have been taking time out of their schedule to work on stuff that isn't on the project management diagram, the workflow, and the updates that have been planned already. That means they can work on whatever they want, their personal projects, brainstorm new ideas, come up with things together, and basically just have a great time developing things that may or may not come into the game. Things that have come from this kind of process in the past includes a lot of the mini games we've had recently, like the LMS rework. I think Guardians of the Rift, Tempo Ross, and even some stuff from TOB, Sepulchre. Like, these were originally this kind of content, Game Jam, or what previously was Ideation Days, that eventually grew into a fully fleshed content proposal. So this week they've been working on all sorts of new stuff, and some of it has been covered on their Twitter, which I'm going to go over one by one. So let's start off with the most interesting to me, which is the Tascale trials. Mod Husky's been working on this combat minigame, and it's basically a wave-based challenge like Jad or Inferno, but it's a bit shorter. Instead of a full 60-50 waves, there are only 12 waves. And as you can see, the difficulty ranges from Fire Cape difficulty to almost Infernal Cape difficulty to above Infernal Cape difficulty, with 4 bosses at 4, 8, and 12. There's some twists where after you finish each wave, you gotta make things a little harder for you in your next wave. You can customize it with which buff or debuff you choose, and you get rewards as you go on. So how's this going to work? So one example that they posted is this. So these are all obviously just placeholder items, but as you complete waves, you earn loot, and your loot stays in this box. So when you go to the next wave, you can get better loot, but if you die, you're going to lose all your rewards. Additionally, when you get to the next wave, it's going to be harder in specific ways. So you have to select one of these things. Maybe it's your maximum health decreases, maybe monsters are more accurate, or maybe you have to always keep moving because there's a monster that's following you. So it's customizable, but ultimately you're going to end up getting harder waves and harder waves the longer you go on. It's more fast-paced, the Inferno and Fight Caves. You know, there's no like early waves that you got to get through. It's basically just hard waves right from the start. And like Inferno, it's emphasis on decision making and strategy. So let's see some other things they talk about. The Tascale, if you didn't know, are these 3 guys in the Karum Slayer dungeon. They're kind of like Tazar-esque creatures, and they have moved over to this area a long time ago. They're immortal, and they are concerned with keeping the balance of life and death. Here's an example of 3 of the monsters that they've developed. I think they already created models for these. Mod West has been helping. And here's like 3 basically Tascale versions of monsters that are already found within the dungeon. Looking pretty cool, if you ask me. I definitely love the way that in Inferno, like, all the monsters follow a similar theme. And I'd love something similar here with these fresh graphics. They talk a little bit about the rewards here. These are like very much just a raw, basic overview of what the rewards could be. You have an untradeable best in slot item that upgrades 3 times. So this is probably something like the cape or something different. Obviously, not probably a cape because we don't want to replace Inferno, but a tradable best in slot item as obtained as a rare drop from the standard loot system. So that's like, as we were talking about with this picture, with all the loot that you get from each wave, like, eventually, like, you could get one of the rare drops and then sell it. And maybe a consumable item that's like consistent money, maybe that's scales, or maybe something that helps you make the waves easier or something like that. So you're going to have both like tradable and untradable rewards from this. So there's benefit to repeating it to make money, but also everyone's going to want to do it for the untradable stuff. Very cool. Ultimately, I think this is one of the coolest ideas that's come out so far. It looks very interesting, very fun, and I can tell you, like, from other content that I've done in RuneScape 3, like, the idea of wanting to push for the later waves and risking the loot that you've already gotten is extremely fun, is extremely like engaging, because it gives you that extra edge of like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to die. Like not only will I waste all the time that I've already put in, like I'll waste the loot that I have. So it's really like gives that extra edge to the content. So that's a Tascale trials. Very interesting. Mod Safa, this is probably the second most talked about thing so far, is the wilderness extension design. So what is this? It's basically a wilderness extension that goes beyond the current level of wilderness and goes into like the far wilderness. And there's a lot of text here. So I'm not going to go over every single thing, but basically, because these are all just, potential proposals, I'll talk about the overview. The overview, like most of this area, like is based around this. So this is a safe town in the far wilderness where like a band of Fremenic outlaws are here, and they're basically to teach people about PKing. Like this is kind of the PKing starter hub, both in the way that like there's a quest here that teaches you what PKing is, but also it's a safe area, in the wilderness that you can start from, and then you can go out and do all your wilderness activities in this extra area. You've got all sorts of stuff here, like the resource area. We have a resource area already, but this is like more so. Double, triple resources. You have to enter with a specific key or tokens. You got the wilderness volcano, like kind of a new volcano. There's red dragons. There's a boss there. There's another boss over here. There's this skull impling, which is pretty interesting. There's a corrupted revenant ruins, which is basically like super revenants that are even more rewarding. There's 3 potential bosses. This is maybe a quick drawing of a red dragon boss. Upgrade some dragonfire shields. Basically, some stuff that isn't completely game breaking, not anything completely crazy, but could be good in the wilderness, could be good for PKing maybe. There's the skull golem boss that maybe they suggested maybe combining some rings together, so something to buff the wilderness rings basically. There's a world boss. If you don't know what a world boss is, basically it's just like something that everyone in the area comes to fight together, like a mass. A boss designed for masses, and it only spawns every so often. It doesn't immediately respawn, and it gives some more wilderness items and buffs. Another suggestion would be this artifact escort, which is basically a like a run through the wilderness kind of mini game where you're trying to take stuff from point A to point B, and you want to get there as safely as possible. Maybe a safe pouch that keeps 1 or 2 to 6 more items safe in the wilderness instead of being dropped to the PKers. Pretty interesting. Well, I think a lot of people might have mixed opinions about this sort of thing, being that the classic discussion of, do we want to send more people that don't want to PK into the wilderness? Is that a good way to revitalize PKing? Not necessarily, but if that is something we want to try out, this is maybe something that how it would look. A reason for people to go into a reason for people to go into the wilderness that actually like makes sense in the modern meta, as opposed to a lot of the wilderness money-making methods, which are kind of dead content nowadays. So I like what's going on here. There's a lot of stuff like that people have talked about before, in terms of like money-making with the resource area. Maybe these bosses also could be like money-making focused. And I think that's a really, a good way to go, and something that people have talked about for a long time. The skull impling also, a lot of people have suggested that before. I've seen that on Reddit for a long time. And also a quest that teaches PKing, very, very cool. Also, just like looking at expanded maps, it always looks cool. It always looks exciting, because you think like, wow, like these areas that we know about like suddenly look different. They suddenly connect to a new area, and you love just seeing new areas in the OSRS art style. So Mod Soften, Rock, Aiza, and Mod Goblin, who I don't know, although I don't really know Soften either, have been working on this, giving some feedback, and coming up with some things. Just to remind everyone, like, this is very much just an overall concept, an idea. Most of these ideas like would never ever come into the game without a major revision, a poll, like that kind of thing. And I'm assuming this is definitely going to be pulled because, some people seem to like it, but it's like too big of a thing to just be like, well, it's a PvP update, let's get it in the game. It's definitely a huge proposal, so something that would need a lot more work if it was to ever come in the game. But a great brainstorming exercise nonetheless. Something else that Soften talked about, and this text is kind of small, so I'll just summarize, is this blessed status. An experimental idea. Basically what it is trying to benefit people who are going to stay in the wilderness for a long time instead of just getting in, getting out. This just basically makes people better target for PKers, a more lucrative target because they're going to be staying in the wilderness for, let's say, a straight hour. But the way that they do it is pretty interesting. Basically, like, the longer you stay in, the more you upgrade your blessed status. It's kind of the anti-skull. And basically it means your food works better, your stats don't drain as much, your protection prayers work a little better, your health regens faster. Basically, like, you're just kind of superhuman. But the trade-off is that you can't use this as a PKer because you won't ever get any loot. So basically, like, for PKers, if you see someone with blessed status, you're like, oh, I should, attack these people because not only are they going to have a lot of loot because they've been here for a long time, there's no risk to me. I think the way that they say it is that they'll send you to Death's office or something. So you will have to pay money to reclaim your items, but you're not going to lose all your items in the same way you would in a normal PvP death if you're the PKer. But ultimately, like, this status is like you're going to stay in the wilderness for a long time. You're going to make yourself a bigger target for PKers in terms of potential loot. But just so that you can stick around for a bit longer and maybe survive a bit easier. So that's kind of interesting. I don't think I'm really a fan of it, but, it's something that they might discuss in terms of, is there something we could do to incentivize people being in the wildy more? I guess that kind of definitely works with the wilderness rework in terms of ways to encourage people to stay out there. And be bait for PKers, which some PKers want. So something a bit more fun, Mod Skylark, who is, let's just check out, junior artist, yes. Mod Skylark has been working on dogs. So we have dogs in game, like the stray dogs, and there's a couple dog NPCs around, but these are going to be like real pets. So they've made, 6 different breeds, I think, in here, and there's the Shiba, there's the Corgi, I'm not sure exactly what that one is, maybe a Beagle, the Pug is really nice, the Husky, and I guess maybe a Terrier of some kind, like a big Terrier, I don't know. They all come with puppies and they grow. There's also color variations. There's another set of color variations. Oh, look at that guy, he's so cute. The bulldog, the sheepdog. Oh, look at him. Man, these are really nice. Definitely a big fan of these. Obviously, like, they haven't said anything about how they would come in, like probably a quest of some sort. But definitely look very cool, and I'm sure a lot of people will love having dogs instead of just cats, which we've had for 20 years now, basically. Yeah, I really like these dogs. Very cool. And then the last thing I guess I'll cover is Mod Ed. So Mod Ed, of course, started off very cryptic, saying, oh, look, there's a quest icon here called the Garden of Death, and there's some cryptic dialogue. Basically, Mod Ed is working on a quest, as usual, and this one is a twisted tale, so if you don't know or remember what Twisted Tales were supposed to be, we had Getting Ahead, which was just kind of a small quest in Zaya in the Kebos Lowlands, and it was just supposed to be small quests that fill out the character and lore of Zaya and the surrounding areas. So the Garden of Death is a new tale set in southern Kebos, so it's around here, which I guess is kind of, I don't know if this currently exists, because I know you go through here to get to Chambers, but I don't know if this green area exists at all. But basically it says discover some hidden ruins, decipher an ancient language, might just uncover the fate of a long forgotten race. So pretty cool. Maybe this says something about how the lizard men were created, where they came from, or something else about some of the races in the area. There are some new monsters and NPCs around ever since the house reworks, so could be very interesting. Or it could be something to do with the Varlamore region to the south. Definitely very cool. Love it when Mod Ed works on something new, because it's always very lore heavy and very interesting and different. And finally, let's just cover some jokes. Mod West made the Stamina Pot Bridge. So if people don't know about the Stamina Pot Bridge, it's like a recurring Reddit suggestion where you'd walk from the Piscatoris fishing colony all the way to Zaya on this bridge, and it takes you like 28 staminas to do it. Here's a gif of him walking on the stamina bridge. Pretty silly. But I also wanted to show some of the models that they worked on for the Tascale challenge. I forget what it's called by now. But these ones are very cool. Mod Jerv is an artist. Look at these. These are the ones that were in the blog or in Husky's post. Here's an animated one that we were looking at just a second ago, and then there's another one up here. That's the one based on the Hydra. Very cool. I love the armored look on the back here, and the the like little lines on the front. Basically look like he's wearing a giant ski coat. Like, it's just so cool. That's about it from what they've released so far. Again, this is the Tascale Trials, the Wilderness expansion, Blessed status, Dogs, a new quest, and the Stamina Pot Bridge, of course. So ultimately, that's what we have so far from the OSRS Game Jam. Pretty cool. I like that they're taking time to do some brainstorming. I like that everything is really different. You can really see that there's a huge range of like everything that's going on here. Like, there's so much different stuff happening, from a quest to a combat minigame to wilderness stuff to just dogs. It's pretty awesome. I think the Game Jam, is going to produce some great content, and I look forward to hearing more about everything that we've heard about today and about stuff that we haven't heard about, secret stuff that might come out in the future. If you guys like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and also subscribe to my Twitter, which you can find in the description. And until next time, peace.